Hi everybody. Well, in this episode we'll be getting on to making the tabletop, which is huge, and I haven't lifted it yet, but I imagine it's going to be bloody heavy. Anyway, let's get on and see how we got to this point.
But first I had to clean up the pedestal bases, so that's what I'm doing. And I'm just using a couple of spoke shaves to try and clean up the slight unevenness, but man, the beach is so hard and it took quite a bit of doing working on the end grain. After the spoke shaves, I moved on to a cabinet scraper, which did a really good job of cleaning up the beach. And then after that, I just ran the orbital sander over it. And then Theodore decided to come out to the workshop and give me a hand as well. And now on to dressing the French oak for the tabletops. It's pretty large stock. It's 150 by 75 millimeters, and but man, it's so nice to work with. So these large pieces of oak will be a full frame around the tabletop. So I'm just mitering each corner, and then I will add some floating tenons, and you'll see that in just a second. I'm just using 12mm birch plywood for my tenons. I find with this kind of join, plywood is strong in pretty much every direction, so I don't have to worry about the tenon splitting along the grain or anything silly. And I think it worked really well. And this is just the first dry fit, so I can work out my panel sizes. And the corners came together pretty nicely. And I'm just dressing up the paneling for the tabletop. It's all 230 by 25mm French oak, and it's really nice looking timber. So these panels are all going to sit dry inside the frame of the tabletop. So I'm just adding a tongue and groove to all the pieces. And yeah, seems to work really well. Now I'm adding a groove while I've got the router set up already for grooving. I'm adding the groove to the tabletop frame, so I don't have to reset up my router later on, and that means the panels are going to line up nice and flush. And you can see my fancy little jig for routing the tongue and groove, or the tongue at least, on the end of the panels. Simple, but it works. And I have to add a support beam underneath the middle of the tabletop panel, so I'm just using a piece of beech and just creating the tenons here. You'll see the mortising in a little bit, and that's just to allow me to put one screw in the middle of each of the panels that create the tabletop, and that way it's just going to stop any rattling or anything from moving around too much later on. And I'm just pre-drilling some countersunk holes in the bottom of that beam, just so it's easier later on. I don't have to do any upside down drilling or anything. And so now I'm on to the glue up, which went pretty smoothly, but it took a lot longer than I thought it would. And at the end of this, you'll see the camera just shuts off because I think I ran out of battery, but you get most of the idea of the glue up. So I had to create a floating tongue on one of the boards because I'd put a tongue and groove on each side of each of the boards, so one of them had to be slightly different, but that was easy enough to make up. And you can see the stack of business cards there. What I am doing is putting two business cards in, or ripping one in half, and that's giving me a 1.5mm gap between each of my panels. and that will just allow for any board movement, expansion, contraction over its lifetime. And after I finish putting the finish on the table, that gap will be filled with some kind of black filler, probably some kind of black silicon, and that will just fill the gap and stop crumbs and food and things getting stuck in there.